The room was full of laughter. The kind of laughter that echoed off the walls, the kind you can't avoid. Everyone was enjoying themselves at the family get together, and there I was, quietly sitting at the edge, listening to the buzz around me. But then, I heard it, and my stomach sank. "He's still jobless." Jake, my brother, said it loud and clear, with that smug, almost joking tone. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The words hung in the air like a heavy fog. My brother, Jake Moriana, was no stranger to making snide remarks, especially when it came to my unemployment. But this time, it was different. He said it in front of everyone, his friends, our cousins, even some of the neighbors. It was like he wanted to make a spectacle out of me, and I couldn't just let it slide. For a second, the room went silent. Then, the laughter exploded. The kind of laugh that makes you feel like you're being laughed at instead of with. The kind that sticks with you. The kind that makes you feel small. But I didn't react. I wanted to. I wanted to snap back, to tell everyone how hard I'd been working to get my life together. I had sent out hundreds of resumes, had countless interviews, but nothing ever stuck. Nothing. But I knew better than to show any emotion. Not yet. I kept my cool, staring into my drink as if it would somehow disappear all the eyes on me. My cheeks burned, but I stayed still. The last thing I wanted was to make a scene. But then, just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, his boss walked in. The room went dead silent. I wasn't sure if anyone even breathed. And people stopped laughing, their expressions shifting from casual to stiff. Everyone in the room felt the change, and it wasn't hard to see why. Mr. Hawkins, Jake's boss, a sharp, successful man in his early 40s, had just walked in and caught the tail end of that little performance. He wasn't supposed to be here. Not today. The tension in the room thickened. Mr. Hawkins looked at me, then at Jake, then back at me again. Everyone else seemed to hold their breath, unsure of what would happen next. Then he took a step closer. Everyone stopped smiling. I could feel the eyes on me, like the weight of the entire room was now pressing down on my shoulders. And in that moment, I realized. This wasn't just another family joke. This was something that could change everything. "Wait, he said, his voice slow and deliberate. I could feel the blood rush to my cheeks as Mr. Hawkins's gaze locked onto mine. The silence in the room was deafening, suffocating almost. Everyone was waiting for me to say something, to respond, but my mind was spinning, trying to figure out what to do. Jake had no idea what he had just done. In his usual careless way, he had set me up in front of everyone. But now it wasn't just the family, it was Mr. Hawkins, his boss. And the man's expression was unreadable, the kind of serious professional face you don't want staring at you when you're already in an awkward spot. Mr. Hawkins stepped closer, almost invading my personal space. I could feel my hands start to shake, but I clenched them into fists and willed myself to stay composed. This wasn't just about my brother's careless words anymore, and this was my one chance to prove myself. To someone important. "Wait, you're..." His voice trailed off, eyes searching mine as if he were trying to place me. It wasn't like he'd ever seen me before. He was Jake's boss, and I was just Jake's sister, who had never really made a name for herself. And now I was standing in front of him, caught in the crossfire of my brother's attempt at humor. I didn't know what to say. My throat felt tight, and my mind went blank. How could I explain myself to him? How could I explain that I had been looking for a job for months, that I was doing everything I could but just couldn't get a break? How do you tell someone that you've tried and failed repeatedly without sounding pathetic? But before I could find the right words, Jake let out a nervous chuckle. Come on, Mr. Hawkins. I was just kidding. Lolita's, she's trying, you know?" I could see the unease in Jake's face. This wasn't going the way he'd planned. It wasn't just the awkwardness of his comment anymore. It was the fact that his boss had taken notice, and he wasn't laughing. Mr. Hawkins didn't seem fazed by Jake's attempt to brush it off. He turned back to me, his eyes scanning me for a moment longer before he asked the question I wasn't ready for. "What have you been doing with your time, then?" The words hit me like a ton of bricks. I knew he wasn't trying to insult me. It was more like he was genuinely curious. But I felt the weight of his question pressing down on me. It wasn't just a casual inquiry. This was my chance. I couldn't mess this up. The room was dead silent. Everyone was waiting for me to answer. And as I stood there, unfeeling the intensity of the moment, I realized that this could be the turning point in my life. But how would I respond? What would I say? The air in the room felt thick, like I could cut through it with a knife. Mr. Hawkins had just asked a question I wasn't prepared to answer. Not in front of everyone, at least. But I knew I couldn't just stand there in silence. Not anymore. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves, and then I spoke. Well, I started, my voice shaky at first, but I forced myself to keep going. I've been applying to jobs. A lot of jobs. It wasn't much of an answer, but it was honest. I couldn't lie. Everyone in that room knew I'd been out of work for months, but I also knew that wasn't enough. Mr. Hawkins wasn't looking for a generic response. He was actually interested. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just some passing remark. He was trying to understand. The room was still silent, everyone hanging on to my every word. Jake had no idea what to do. He was shifting awkwardly from foot to foot, clearly regretting his earlier comment, but he couldn't take it back now. He had thrown me under the bus in front of Mr. Hawkins and the entire family, and now the ball was in my court. I could feel Mr. Hawkins studying me. His eyes were sharp, focused. "What kind of jobs have you been applying for?" His question caught me off guard. My mind raced for a moment, but I had to be truthful. Mostly office work, administrative positions, project coordination, that kind of thing. But I hesitated. It's hard. There are so many applicants, and I just can't seem to get my foot in the door. I didn't expect it, but Mr. Hawkins gave me a small nod of acknowledgement. "I see," he said quietly, as if he was actually considering what I was saying. And then, in an unexpected move, he asked, "Would you be interested in a position? I might know someone who's looking for someone with your skills." My heart skipped a beat. Was he serious? Was Mr. Hawkins offering me a chance? Jake's face fell. His earlier smugness had completely evaporated. I could tell he was shocked, unsure of how to react. He opened his mouth to say something, but then closed it again. Realizing that there was nothing he could say that would make the situation better, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My mind raced. Could this be real? Could I actually have a shot at something after all these months of rejection? But before I could say anything, Mr. Hawkins continued. "Mike, come by the office on Monday. Let's see if we can figure something out." I didn't know what to feel. Excitement? Nerve? All I knew was that this was a chance, and I couldn't waste it. The next few moments felt like a blur, as if time had slowed down just for me. Mr. Hawkins had just extended an offer, an opportunity I hadn't seen coming. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could feel the sweat forming on the back of my neck. This was real. But I still couldn't shake the feeling that I was in a dream, one where everything was falling into place, yet I couldn't fully believe it was happening. Jake didn't say anything. He just stood there, his expression frozen. I could tell he was scrambling for words, trying to figure out how to salvage his earlier remark, but there was no way to take it back. No way to undo the damage. Not now. And honestly, I didn't care anymore. The whole room was watching, and it was like I could hear the whispers in the background. People were still processing what had just happened. They had all been laughing, thinking my unemployment was some kind of joke, but now the atmosphere was different. The power dynamics had shifted. The whole tone of the evening had changed. Mr. Hawkins turned to me again, his expression unreadable. "I'll be expecting you Monday morning at 10, he said. "If you're ready, of course." I nodded, barely able to process his words. Was this a real job offer, or was he just being polite? It didn't matter. What mattered was that someone important had recognized my worth. For the first time in a long time, I felt like my hard work was finally being acknowledged, like my efforts weren't in vain. And the room remained in a state of stunned silence. No one was laughing now. They were all looking at me differently, like they were seeing me for the first time. It was like the air had shifted, and everyone suddenly understood what I'd been going through. But there was one person who still couldn't hide his discomfort. Jake. His face was red, his jaw tight, and I could tell he was regretting every word he'd said. Before I could say anything else, he cleared his throat and awkwardly tried to recover. "Well, that's great, Lolita," he mumbled, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "Good luck, really." The tension was unbearable. Jake was trying so hard to salvage what little dignity he had left, but the damage was done. He had humiliated me in front of everyone. And now he had to watch me walk away with the chance he never expected me to get. And me? I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of pride. This wasn't just about a job, it was about showing everyone, especially Jake, that I wasn't just the jobless sister. I had a future. And maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something new. Monday came faster than I expected. The night before, I hardly slept. My mind raced with possibilities, doubts, and the overwhelming urge to make a good impression. Could I really do this? Could I prove to Mr. Hawkins that I was worth the opportunity he'd given me? My stomach churned with nerves, but as I prepared to leave for the office, something inside me clicked. I wasn't going to let this chance slip away. The office was everything I had imagined it would be. Bright, professional, and busy. The kind of place where the air felt thick with ambition and everyone around you was moving with purpose. I took a deep breath and walked into the lobby, the polished floors echoing with each step. As I checked in, the receptionist gave me a warm smile, which only made my nerves spike even higher. I was led into a sleek conference room where Mr. Hawkins was waiting, looking as calm and composed as ever. But this time, there was no tension, no judgment. Just a professional environment where I was given the chance to prove myself. The interview didn't last long. We spoke about my experience, my skills, and the positions I'd been applying for. But there was something different this time. I wasn't just talking about my job search or explaining why I hadn't found work yet. I was talking about my future, about my desire to contribute. I'm to prove myself. I wasn't just the jobless sister anymore. I was someone who had worked hard, someone who was ready to take on a challenge. At the end of the interview, Mr. Hawkins gave me a smile. "We'll be in touch soon," he said, and I couldn't help but feel the weight lift from my shoulders. This time, I knew the offer wasn't just politeness. He had seen something in me, and I was determined to show him he was right. By the end of the week, I received the call. I got the job. I couldn't believe it. After months of rejection, the endless rounds of interviews where I'd been told no, this was the break I'd been waiting for. And as I sat there, phone in hand, I couldn't help but think back to that family gathering, to the moment Jake had said I was still jobless. The irony wasn't lost on me. In the end, it wasn't just about landing a job, it was about reclaiming my dignity, about proving to myself and everyone else that I wasn't defined by my struggles. Jake never expected this outcome. And honestly, I think the biggest surprise was that he wasn't the only one who could make moves in life. The moment was bittersweet. Jake came to me later, apologizing awkwardly, trying to act like nothing had happened, but the damage had already been done. What mattered was that I was walking into a new chapter of my life, leaving behind the version of me he thought he knew. I realized that sometimes all it takes is one person believing in you to change everything. And now I was finally going to show the world and myself exactly what I could do.